All right, guys, welcome back to Ghost and Friends. Tonight we got a very special guest, Miss Alison Renner. Welcome to the channel, Alison.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Well, thanks again for doing this. We're going to get into a little Kansas State and the Big 12 football action. A lot to talk about with the new Big 12 and Kansas State having some, I think, pretty big expectations for the season coming up. And before we get into all that, we're going to ask Miss Alison, if you don't mind, share with us a little backstory for those that might be some of my Texas guests that are watching tonight. Share with them a little backstory. What started your K-State fandom? You talk a lot of K-State football. So how'd you get here?
Yeah, so I'm currently living in Dallas right now. I just moved here this year, but I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri. I went to K-State for college, mostly because both of my parents went to K-State for college and met there. And I grew up, a huge K-State fan. I went to a lot of games when I was a kid. My parents would meet all of their college friends at games and they'd hang out with their kids. So it's always been K-State. I did visit a couple other universities, but I always knew K-State was going to be home for me. So I still make it back quite a bit. Ever since I left, I've been back for football games every year. And I'm planning to go to at least 3 home games this year. Trying to catch them on the road whenever I can too in Texas. So.
Well, that's a lot of fun. I've been up there to Bill Snyder a couple times, and it's always a good time. So enjoy it when you do get to go back. There's a lot of good games going on in Manhattan this fall. As far as K-State coming into the year, I know a lot of talk around Avery Johnson. What was this, year 6 of Coach Kleiman's era?
Mm-hmm.
What are your overall expectations for K-State going into the new Big 12?
Yeah, so pretty lofty expectations, I think, from the entire fan base. New Big 12, new teams, old teams leaving. It's really an open conference. And we said this last year too. We still had Texas and Oklahoma kind of lingering. But this year feels like it really is open for anybody to take. And I think it's a really important year to establish which teams are going to be in the championships and which teams we're going to see forward. If we're going to have one of those Oklahomas that's in it every single year, Baylor and Oklahoma State have been in it with K-State 2 or 3 times in the past 10, 20 years. So I think we're going to have a lot of parity this season. I think we're going to see a lot of teams kind of find their place. I'm waiting to see which team is going to surprise us because I know there's always one. But as far as K-State goes, we're kind of all riding at an all-time high. I think we kind of left off last season a little bit disappointed in our last conference game, losing to Iowa State at home, the infamous Snowmageddon game.
Snowmageddon.
Which would have been so cool if we won that game because the pictures from that game are amazing. But I can never look at them again because I know how that game ended. And it was just terrible watching from home. But I think with Avery Johnson, with the new team coming in, we have a lot of returners that are just really young guys. We had a lot of true freshmen last year that kind of stepped up. Jaden Jackson is one of them, wide receiver, is going to be a big target for Avery. I think there's been a lot of confusion with Will Howard leaving from outside fan bases. That was always kind of the plan going forward. Either Will was going to transfer or go to the NFL. He ultimately decided he wasn't quite ready for the NFL, so he decided to transfer and ended up going to one of the top universities, especially for quarterbacks at Ohio State. So the fan base is still very much behind Will. We wish him the best, but it's always been Avery, and everybody's really looking forward to seeing what Avery can do this year.
That's a guy that I think all of college football is ready to watch Avery Johnson kind of go at it. And and no disrespect to the Big 12, but it feels like a conference that Avery Johnson can just light up week in, week out. Now, the question for you here is you mentioned Jaden Jackson is with Ben Sinnott being gone, a star of a tight end of the Big 12. Who do you think is that top target for Avery Johnson this fall?
So yeah, like I mentioned, Jaden Jackson definitely going to be a big one. The number one tight end, I believe, right now is Garrett Oakley. He is going to take in full time for Ben's place. We saw him a lot last season. He was very, very good. There are a couple K-State people that are thinking that he might be better than Ben Sinnott. We'll
It's
kind
a
of
big compliment. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to put that expectation on him yet without seeing him more. But like I said, we did see him a lot last year, and I really liked what he put on the field. So I think we're in great hands at tight end. Another one that we're probably going to see a lot of is Dylan Edwards, transfer from Colorado. He had originally committed to Kansas State first. Then decommitted, went to Notre Dame, and then decommitted and went to Colorado. Played for Deion Sanders for one season as a true freshman. He actually is childhood best friends with Avery Johnson.
Really,
So
I did not know that angle. That's
yes.
neat.
Yeah, so Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards are both from the Wichita area. They went to different high schools, but they grew up playing football together.
Okay.
So Avery has always been actually it was Dylan Edwards that committed to K-State first before Avery did. And Avery's always been trying to get Dylan back to Manhattan, and he's finally here and looks like he's just thriving. He's been on the train trying to get recruits there too. He's been hosting recruits so this summer. So we'll probably see him. I'm hoping to see him actually do some returning this year. Him and DJ Giddens in the backfield. It's going to be an all Kansas backfield with Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards, and DJ Giddens being from the state of Kansas.
I mean, that's a really, really strong backfield. Could be as good as any in the Big 12. One of the better ones in the country. That's really strong. So yeah, I can understand why offensively you have high expectations there. I don't mean to bring up any pain, but I do have a question for you. As a former Wildcat, did it sting a little bit when former Wildcat, former offensive coordinator Coach Klein bolted for the bad guys down in College Station?
That was such a weird time. That this entire winter was so weird for K-State athletics, with the Colin Klein situation, and also with basketball, which was a totally separate issue. But that all happened within a couple weeks, and it felt like the entire athletic department. It was never on fire. It was just really confusing for a long time.
Right.
And I remember I was at the gym when I got that news that he was leaving, and I was just really confused because as K-State fans, we had kind of expected, Colin Klein found his way back to K-State as a quarterback coach, was then promoted to offensive coordinator, was doing amazing in that role. Rumored to have been offered a very good pay raise to go to Notre Dame when their offensive coordinator left for Alabama and turned it down. He had Alabama looking at him as their offensive coordinator before that. And there had been rumors about Texas A&M, but they were very, very kind of low, didn't hear much. And that was when Jimbo was still there.
Yeah.
So him taking the job with a new head coach at Texas A&M felt super out of left field, especially because he had already turned down these really big jobs.
Right.
So
part of me wonders if he knew that Jimbo's time at A&M was short-lived, but at the same time knew that, I think you said that, talking about Tommy Rees going from Notre Dame to Alabama, maybe he didn't want to go to Alabama because he didn't think Saban last. I don't know. I'm just trying to make your point. It is pretty awkward timing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really threw us all for a loop. So, but I don't know, him and his wife, they posted something to Facebook saying that they would be back sometime. Sorry, I can't read and talk at the same time.
I'm not very good at it either.
But like I said, we always kind of expected Klein to take over as head coach. It was the normal progression of things after Kleiman left. Kleiman, like we mentioned, this is his 6th year. I expect him to coach another 4 years, maybe 5, before he retires. I'm very confident as long as Gene Taylor's the athletic director at K-State, Kleiman will retire with K-State. So yeah, 5 years later, we expected Colin Klein to take over as head coach, and now he's not there. So some are saying he's going to come back when that opening's there, but I don't know at this point. I'm not sure he will come back, because if he comes back, he either didn't make it in the SEC with Texas A&M and is performing poorly, or he's too good and is promoted to another head coaching job somewhere else. So we'll see how that plays out. I like I said, I think we still got another 4, 5, 6 years until it happens, but weird situation.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sorry to bring all that up. I know that was a little awkward, but we do have some Aggies in the comments here. Hopefully we can handle Coach Klein for you the way that we have the last couple of years. But no, I'm sorry. I won't do that again. All right, I will say this. I'm a massive fan of K-State football. I have been for a very long time. I loved El Roberson. I love Darren Sproles. But I do have a little bit of a nightmare story from a Kansas State game. So in 2007, I was pretty mad because in 2006, y'all beat us 45-42 in Manhattan and kind of ruined our shot at backdooring into the national championship game. And so y'all came to Austin, and my little brother was in high school and had never been to a game at DKR. And so we lived in East Texas, and I told him, I was like, hey, we're going to go to Waco, and we're going to watch the game at like a sports bar or something, or a restaurant. I don't know what I told him. I had something silly, but I had tickets in the glove compartment. We were going to the game. So I surprised little brother, I'm like, hey, grab the directions, because it's forever ago. And he finds the tickets, so we're really excited. So we go to 2007 K-State, Texas. This is when Ron Prince is your coach, and you have Josh Freeman at quarterback, and some no-name wide receiver named Jordy Nelson at the time, who just absolutely has a field day. And on top of him having a field day, y'all made Colt McCoy's life absolute hell. And just one more kick from the gods. It rained for most of the game. So this was the box score from that game. It was a beating. We lose 41-21 at home to unranked K-State as the number 17 in the country. Get dominated there in the second quarter, obviously. And it rains the whole game. My brother's phone is ruined. Has to get a new phone. And I'm like, yeah, man, welcome to Texas football. I hope you had a good time. But it's still a good memory. Think about it sometimes. Luckily, the last few times we've gone to DKR to watch, we've got a little vengeance for that day. But so if you were to say right now in the Big 12, give me one sleeper team, and then I want you, if you're ready to do it, go ahead and go out on a limb and give me a conference champion. And it's totally okay if you think it's K-State. That's completely fine.
Oh man. Okay, so sleeper team. Are we talking about sleeper team to win the conference, or sleeper team that thinks is going to win the conference?
Let's do to win the conference. I mean, there's a lot of teams that can win the conference, but maybe there's someone that you think or thought of that no one else is talking about. I mean, it is. I think it's pretty open, but.
So here's the deal. Last year, everybody was on the Texas Tech hype train. I don't even know why. I think it was because they're recruiting. But everybody was dead set. Texas Tech, they're the sleeper team. They're the dark horse. Because the year before that, it was K-State. Everyone's like, actually, K-State, might have something here. And they end up winning the conference. So everyone tried to do that with Texas Tech in 2023. Lost to Wyoming. First game. Completely. I mean, it's not a conference game, so they could have still gone, but I was much less afraid of playing at Lubbock last season. This year, it seems everybody's hyping up West Virginia. And it's not just Pat McAfee. He was on College Game Day saying whatever. He's a homer. He's whatever. His opinion is whatever. But even before him, everyone is hyping up West Virginia like, oh, trust the climb. Like we're actually really doing it this year, even though they almost fired their head coach 2 seasons ago. Even last season, he was on thin ice. So yeah, I think Neil Brown is an okay coach for them right now. I think he saved his job last season, but I don't see it with West Virginia. I want to say Oklahoma State because it's always Oklahoma State ends up being better than you think that they're going to be because Mike Gundy just can't. I believe he's won at least 7 games his entire career except for his first season, which is an insane stat to have that kind of consistency under one coach.
Absolutely. Especially with the way that they've recruited,
Yeah.
It's not like they're just killing it in recruiting.
Right. Yeah, they're very similar to K-State in that way. So if I were to throw one team on there, it would probably be Oklahoma State. Do I think they're going to win the conference? No. But watch this clip back in December and have Gundy prove me wrong again. As far as conference champion realistically, I do think it's K-State's year. I don't know if they'll win the championship game, but I don't see it, they're favored in every single conference game that they're playing. They're favored in every game that they're playing this season. So realistically, if they're not making the conference championship game, something was miscalculated. Some team is going off that was unexpected, or K-State is playing poorly.
Right.
So I expect K-State to be there. The other team I expect them to play is Utah, because they do not play each other. K-State and Utah do not have a conference matchup during the season. And I think Utah's schedule is pretty favorable. So those are the 2 I'm putting in there. And I'm going to take K-State to win it because I'm going to be at the game.
You have to, right? You got to take K-State.
For sure.
I think I told a story on the last channel or the last episode of the channel. I went to back in every story I have is old, man. It's making me feel really old. But another high school story, like I used to record all the big games that like I was unable to watch. You're in high school, you got a lot of fun things to go do. And so I would record all the games that I wouldn't watch and then go back and watch them later. And in 2003, I recorded OU and K-State thinking like, oh man, I'm going to watch OU blow the doors off K-State. And I was really excited to watch it because, I mean, I loved Sproles. Like, that was my favorite player in college football for several years. And then in the NFL, it was awesome too. But I go to a high school playoff game, and it's like a newer stadium, and they have a ticker, and they flash a score at halftime, and it says 35-7 Kansas State. And I even, like, last week I said, I was like, the ticker's broken. That's not right. Nobody is doing that to Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely this is one of the teams that kind of reminds me of a team like that was so explosive because, I mean, you talk about Giddens and Dylan Edwards and Avery in the backfield. Like, and I mean, if Oakley lives up to, you're talking about some of the hype and the expectations around him, I mean, that becomes a really, really dynamic offense. And so I hope you're not disappointed. I gave my Big 12 prediction on the last show. I did have a school you mentioned, Texas Tech, actually this time living up to the hype. I think they have a really good line. I think they have a favorable schedule. But my concerns with K-State, I'm going to talk to you about them right here, and I want you to just maybe about the end of the show, I'm picking K-State. I do have a little worry about the schedule, okay? If you're looking at the schedule from your perspective, what do you think is the toughest 2 or 3 game stretch to you? Like, what's a huge stretch of football here for Kansas State?
So when I saw the schedule released, I went ahead and marked my predictions. I think the biggest game that we need to watch for here is, although I just said that I'm not too worried about them, is at West Virginia. And I go off of vibes so much with K-State. I don't know why, but every time we play in Morgantown, things usually work out okay, but I have seen so many games where we lose by a missed field goal. We lose by, we don't play our best.
Well, not the twist the knife. Not the twist the knife, but last year, I mean, if we're going to be serious, and I know this is, technically somewhat of a Texas channel, but y'all probably should have beat us in Austin. I mean, if you're talking because of kicking errors, you had a bunny missed field goal, a missed extra point, and not to make it worse, but if you go all the way back to that Mizzou game you played last year, you have another field goal missed inside of 30 yards. 3 of your 4 losses inside of, or what I think all of your losses were by a 1 score or less. So I'm making your point. Like, just the little things. Like,
Mhm.
y'all are so close. It's the little bitty things, kicking, win a couple close ball games. But go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up the pain.
No, I was at that Texas game, and I was literally signing a lease on an apartment and then driving down to Austin that day, and it was an emotional roller coaster. But
Yeah.
if you look at I can't I think oh my gosh, I'm not thinking of who does it, but there's a guy on Twitter that always does these close loss charts that says, okay, here's all the teams in the past 10 years who have lost by like 1 score, this many games. K-State is always number 1 or 2. It is insane. And it is so, to think of how many times, we were so close to a conference championship, to a national championship by an overtime loss. It is insane. And that goes back to 1998 with Texas A&M. But
Why'd you
yes,
do that to yourself? Don't do that to yourself.
I listen. I was like 3 months old
Uh,
at the time. I wasn't even like conscious about it yet, but I still hear it. I mean, that's the one thing.
I bet you still cried. I mean,
I
the
bet I
K,
did at some point that
with your
day.
parents and the K State natural football fan, and you like, I mean, had to be a little
Oh my
pain.
gosh, yeah. But on the schedule, yeah, West Virginia, I'm a little concerned about. Out of all things, a lot of non K State fans I'm seeing pick Oklahoma State as a upset game. The thing about K State and Oklahoma State is that K State cannot win in Stillwater, and Oklahoma State cannot win in Manhattan. And I
That's
don't
been
know what
true.
it is, but it's just for the past 5, 6 years, that has been the case. So I'm following tradition here. I think that we are going to safely handle Oklahoma State. I'm hoping that is going to be a college game day game. Um, and Arizona on here, I think is going to be another really good game. That's a Friday night. It is in Manhattan. It is not a conference game. So despite Arizona being in the conference, it won't be counted toward the conference overall totals.
Yeah, Baylor and
So
Utah are doing that as well, right? Or they did it last year at least.
yes, yeah. I can't remember if they played last year or this year, but there is at least one other team that is in the same situation. Just too
I
late to
know
change the
they
schedule.
I know they played last year because Utah
Mhm.
barely beat them in
That's
Waco.
right.
I think
Yeah.
it's a 2-year deal. Well, okay, so I'll let you answer my concerns here. So what scares me about your schedule, and you know more K State than I do, but from the 21st of September down to the last game you have in October against your rivals, Kansas. Okay, you're talking a stretch of, and now what you just like you just said, you have Arizona before that. I mean, then you have Tulane before that. So I mean, those are teams that I mean, you're going to have to play good football to beat. Tulane's probably got a shot to win their conference. Arizona could have a shot to win this conference, and then you go into Provo. But from the conference schedule, BYU down to Kansas, I just think that's a really interesting stretch of games. BYU and Provo is never going to be easy. Then you just talked about the Oklahoma State game, but then again, y'all kind of like you said, y'all dominate them in Manhattan, and then you have a bye, which helps, and you get to go to Colorado. I don't have a clue what Colorado will look like by that time, but of the 5 games that I'm talking about, that's the one I worry about the least for you. Just playing K State football, I think, gets you through that one. But then, yes, the West Virginia game, and I mean, like, what are your thoughts on Kansas? Like, I personally think Kansas has I won't say as good a shot to anyone to make the Big 12 championship game, but I think
Mhm.
they're up there in the first 2 tiers for sure. If you're talking 2 or 3 team tiers,
Yeah, I mean, to give Kansas some respect, they have, infinitely gotten much better than they have been. It's really ever since they beat Texas and Austin that.
but what is
Um,
this?
okay, I'm sorry. Uh,
No,
I was
that's the
watching
night.
that game. Huh?
I was saying that's the night the ghost account started. So I'm grateful.
Really?
In the long run, yes, that
Wow.
miserable evening.
Yeah,
But
that
go on.
night I was at a bar in Wichita. I think I can't remember if that was the same night that K-State beat Oklahoma in Norman. It might have been a different night. I was at the same bar regardless. But I remember, I'm at this like kind of like nice cocktail lounge. I have my drink, and I was like, wait, no, the KU actually is like pretty close. And it went to overtime, and I was like, there's no way this is happening. The entire bar, it's not even a sports bar, but it's like everybody's getting up, looking at the tiny like TV behind the bar, and all the bartenders are looking at it like, is this really happening right now? And yeah, no, I mean, KU beating Texas and Austin happened. I'm gonna say several years before that too. I also remember that game of coming home to my parents' house, and then I looked at the TV and I was like, "Whoa, this is really happening." Um, so it was always funny then, right? Because it was just like, "Huh." Well, not to you, but for me,
It just doesn't
even
feel right that they have 2 wins over Texas since, what, 2017, and y'all have
yeah,
had none when y'all are the far superior program and have beat them every time.
yeah.
A little frustrating. I would have definitely, would have liked to trade a couple losses to you guys,
The
instead
Big
of
12 is huge in tradition. And like we were saying with K State and Oklahoma State, there's just some traditions in this conference. K State always beating KU, but Ron Prince always beating Texas in whatever situation, but not able to beat KU. So,
he the way he stomped on the sideline in 2007, like, I have PTSD from it. We were section 4 in the north end zone, or row 4 in the north end zone. Like, K-State was not messing around. The things that they were breaking, like pregame, they're all doing their position groupings and stuff, and they're like all breaking out on F Texas, and I was like, all right, like, I think they're gonna show up a little bit here. And then they're like, their head coach is just stomping down the sideline. I actually watched that earlier today just to remember a little bit. But
remember, yeah,
yeah,
Ron
I
Prince
mean,
is wild. Ron
there's
Prince
a
was an insane era of K State football.
I mean, I just naturally felt like, like once you moved on from Bill Snyder, that naturally whoever you landed on was going to work out, because
Hmm.
y'all had been so solid for such a long time, and then you realize how special of a guy Bill actually was. And so
For
it was
sure.
really cool when the Big 12 got started, and you had K-State being a national power, Nebraska being a national power, then Oklahoma and Texas quickly became national powers. And I
And
mean,
Colorado at that time too won a national championship within the Big
and,
12.
yeah, Colorado was good.
Mhm.
I mean, they kept us out of a national championship game, and from beating us in the 2001 Big 12 championship game. And
Mhm.
like yourself, we've all we had some Big 12 championship games that didn't go our way and kept us from playing for much higher stakes. And but that's part of it, and that's what's the best part about the new Big 12, in my opinion, is think about all the competitive games and all the parity, like you said, that we're going to have in the league. I mean, there's probably, I mean, 6, 7 teams that if they were to win the conference, it might surprise you, but, like, I mean, you wouldn't be floored, you know?
Mhm.
And so, I don't know. I mean, I think you and Utah are the trendy, the hot picks. You got Avery Johnson and Cam Rising, two fantastic coaches who are going to have great defenses. And speaking of those defenses, do you have any thoughts on your defense? I know you lost a little bit. Um, what about your secondary? I personally think you might have the best secondary in the conference, by a good margin, to be honest. How are y'all feeling in Kansas State about the defense?
Yeah, the defense, I feel like there's been a lot of turnover. We lost Kobe Savage, which was a little surprising at first.
Yeah.
He went to Oregon, uh, likely got a really good NIL package. Can't blame him too much there, but kind of sad because he really became a fan favorite for sure. He was a team captain, and it really held the defense together well. However, I think we're in good hands. We've as much turnover as we have had on the defensive side. We do have some returning veterans, some fifth year guys who are going to be pretty solid, hold everybody together. So I'm not really I'm pretty okay with that. I don't necessarily think it's um, we won't be all Big 12 defense or anything, but I think at the end of the day we'll be in good hands.
I like your defense a lot, to be honest. I just think if you can find a pass rush last year, a little bit of the issue, and then you lost a couple of your edge rushers. The dang portal. I mean, it's tough in the NIL era, but yeah. So I mean, it's if you find a defense with the offense that you're going to have. My concerns mean nothing. My schedule worries, they're not relevant. I think that y'all have a really good chance to win that conference. Personally, a little bit of me, I probably try not to say this too many times since I'm trying to get into the whole media thing, but I do kind of hope you win the conference. It's easy to root for old Email up there, and then I think I've been to Bill Snyder 3 times, and y'all are always great. You even let us win one of them, so that was really cool too.
Was probably at that game too recently.
But I tell you what, nothing was. We went to the what would it have been? The 2015 Charlie, or I guess maybe it was 2016. I don't know. Charlie, we went and watched Charlie Strong, a 5-7 Texas team, play a November game in Manhattan, and that whole drive was just like, man, we really love Texas football because we're not going to go up there. But we covered the spread. We only lost by 3, and I think y'all gave up a garbage time touchdown just to make us feel better. But
yeah.
it was fun times. So let's talk a little bit about Avery Johnson again. Okay, you think there's a lot of pressure on Avery Johnson to live up to some of the Heisman hype? I think there's been a lot of preseason accolades placed on him, by Big 12 media. Give us a little perspective into Avery's world if you have one. Is he a free and easy type of guy, or do you think there is some big time expectations that he kind of feels the pressure of?
Yeah, so I do think that he's got a lot of expectation on him this year by the K-State fan base and national media fan base. Like in general, he's got a lot weighing on his shoulders. However, I have never seen a quarterback as level-headed and even-keeled as he is. He is a true sophomore, did not take a redshirt season, and he carries himself like a fifth-year senior. Avery Johnson for the Heisman, he is like a top 10 Heisman odds.
You can't rule it out.
Yeah, no, because realistically, like I mentioned, K-State is favored in every game. I do not expect them to go undefeated unless they have some crazy, unexpected season like TCU did in 2022. I don't think they're going to go undefeated, but realistically, if they did, I mean, you're talking about a top 4 team at that point. With their quarterback within the Heisman ceremony. So we have not had a Heisman prospect since Colin Klein. I do believe we had one more nominated before that, but it's been over 10 years. And, Colin Klein did lose to Johnny Manziel that year. Manny Te'o was also in that class. That entire 2012 Heisman class was wild. I want a documentary over the entire thing. And then you have Colin Klein, who's just
we've had a couple about the individual participants, not all of them, but
yeah.
let's just do.
We got the other 2.
Yeah.
So now we need to make one about Colin, but his would be way too boring. So, man, yeah, I do think he's got a lot of pressure on him, but I have full confidence he's going to handle it. I did actually just see someone say today that Avery Johnson during team meetings doesn't sit with the quarterback group. He actually sits with the offensive linemen to build the camaraderie with those guys. All of the offensive linemen are really close with Avery. Same with DJ and Dylan. I think they spend as much time as they can together so that they can really mesh as an offense, and they're all on the same page. Just physically spending that time together, sharing meals together, team meetings together. It's all just part of the culture at K-State. So I feel good about Avery. I think he is so happy to be in Manhattan growing up as a K-State fan. He just talks about his love for the university so much and what kind of legacy that he's wanting to leave here. So I think, I think he's ready for the pressure and ready to live up for the expectation.
I can't wait to see it. Man, I feel like I'm striking out big time with you here. Also on the prediction show on Friday, I had Jalen Milroe winning the Heisman, but then I had my top sleeper as Jalen Daniels, which isn't really that big of a sleeper, but I just felt like Avery is such a trendy pick, and it's just too easy to say like, yeah, Avery Johnson, because everyone knows he has a shot to go crazy. So if you somehow see that, I thought for a second you were about to make fun of me picking Tech when you brought up Tech at first. When I asked you for your prediction, I was like, dang, did she actually see that? And she's going to roast me too.
Well, I would say, picking Jalen Daniels, I think he was a trendy pick last year.
Sure.
He played 3 games last year. And I'm not into the KU side of media, but I saw an update with Lance Leopold. He's not in full practice still. So there's a lot of question over if he's going to start off playing, if he's going to play the whole season. There's just so much up in the air with that, and I don't think I could put money on that he's going to finish the season.
No, that's more of me, making myself feel better about the 2021 game. If he wins the Heisman and he beat Texas, and it's like, okay, who cares? We lost to the Heisman. Deal with it.
Right.
We were his first chapter.
That's where you got to start.
Yeah, sad. Like little did we know at the time that I mean, you could tell he was a player, but it was like, okay, everybody's scoring on us this year, kind of. Come to the second half, we were giving up a lot of points, but it is what it is, and we're here now. I will say that between the O-line that you have, I mean, I've been sleeping on you guys just a little bit, but it's because I give you guys a lot of love on the timeline, and I've already been called an Alabama fan, a Texas Tech fan, and an A&M fan in the last like 5 days in the comments on here, and so I don't want to. Careful, I can only commit to so many teams. I will bring up last year's game, but probably not what you think I'll bring up about it. Maybe it is, but I did tweet a teaser out. Did you see this tweet last year during our football game?
Oh, no.
You didn't see this?
I did not see this. Because I was at the game. I honestly.
Yes. Okay.
I wasn't. It was hot. My phone was dying. I had to get an Uber out of there. It was a very sad into the game.
Well, I will say that I spent also very hot, not able to be at DKR, but sitting on the beach digging a hole for a campfire that we were going to have that night. We were going to leave the beach, go hang out have dinner, then come back and do a campfire and roast marshmallows and have some fun. Well, I'm literally for 4 hours. I'm digging a very deep hole and a very wide hole, and I'm loving it because I've got the game set up, and I'm not having to go chase my kids like everybody is doing my responsibilities for me. I'm the hole guy, and so I'm gonna be honest. I was going through it. There was a lot of things said in that hole that thankfully stayed in that hole. I was pretty upset with the way that second half played out, and you guys played some really good football. We played some really, really bad football. And obviously, you can tell by this tweet that I had very low confidence going into overtime. Mm-hmm. Y'all defended Texas and Malik Murphy very, very well in the second half. We couldn't stop you guys from doing anything in the second half. We're kind of lucky that you missed a couple kicks. But yeah, so I tweeted this out in full belief that, hey, we're going to get the ball, maybe kick a field goal, they'll score their touchdown, and that'll be that. And sure enough, that's exactly how the script went up until, y'all being unable to convert. So I posted this, and shortly after the game ends, I'm at the beach celebrating and just happy, and I get back to my phone, and there's a lot more comments talking up. I posted a tweet above this. I quote tweeted it with just like the eyeball emoji, and there was probably I think like 80 comments like, "Dude, you have to do it. You like have to do it. You can't not do
it.
Can't
back out of it now.
Have to be a man of your word." And they like tagged other people, like some other big accounts that have made promises and had not followed through. And so I was just like, oh man. And so yeah, I will say that I did wait until later that night. I'm not gonna post that picture, but I did post video evidence there on the timeline later that evening. And yeah, it was a wild time. So that was a big moment for my account. I definitely I think I was known pretty well in the Texas circles by then, but after that I was known for an entirely different reason, I think. And so good time. So I appreciate you going and watching that game and skipping out on that, because I definitely did not want to go run ass naked on the beach because I posted a tweet on Twitter.
That game was so interesting because I went with two of my girlfriends in college that we all lived together. And I was like, it very kind of impromptu. Like I said, I was already driving down to Dallas to sign a lease on an apartment. And I was like, you know what? Austin's not that much further. Let's all just drive down. I had one of my friends fly in. We got in the car. We got an Airbnb that for a really good deal. Got tickets. We got cheap tickets. We were sitting on the the high end, I want to say maybe the west side of the stadium. I don't know. Very cheap seats, very hot seats, very steep seats. One of my friends didn't even make it until the second quarter because we went out on 6th Street the night before and she wasn't feeling great. Then we sat next to these people that were not very fun overall. And I saw across, there were some open seats on the other side of the stadium. So I scoped it out and told my friends to go over on that side. The people we sat next to on that side were really awesome Texas fans. And I'm
Good.
so glad that we switched over because they were, just really real with us. In that overtime game, like we were all of us were like, dude, we all can't look. Like the whole section was like, don't look and see if they convert or not. And those Texas fans were like, I think we're losing this game. Me and my friends were like, no, I think we're losing this game. Like none of us were optimistic about it. So as heartbreaking as it was, I'm glad I got to meet those people. I don't remember any of their names, but they were really cool. I met Kyle there too. Shout out Kyle, who wanted to say hi.
Okay. My bad, Kyle. I'll let you down on that. We're 40 minutes in, and I didn't do my one job, man.
But other than that, I think it was an overall positive experience. I just wish that game would have ended differently. But I will say we didn't have any Texas fans like harassing us as we left or like really like kicking it in. I think everybody was just excited because at that point, I think Texas was in a really good shot for the CFP. And I think everybody felt really confident that they were going to make it in there after losing to Oklahoma a week or two before.
Yeah, I mean, that was early November when that game was played. So I think maybe November 9th or something of that nature. So yeah, that was a big time. So we knew we were definitely at minimum in the Big 12 title hunt. And that if we won out, because Oklahoma had already lost to Kansas and maybe Oklahoma State at that point, because they didn't play Bedlam at the end of the season last year, I don't believe. But yeah, we knew if we took care of business, whoever won that game, that was a huge one. But definitely fortunate to get out of there with a win. That second half was a nightmare. I think we got up. I don't know, was it 27-7, and everything just seemed to be in complete control. But that's college football, and that's why it's fun. It can all change on the dime. And next thing you know, you're running naked on a beach, and you're huddled with Texas fans, with no one wanting to watch a play. So it's a beautiful sport. I'm glad this is our favorite hobby. But give me let's do this. I've asked most guests on this show, what is your overall favorite football memory as a Kansas State fan?
Okay. I guess I have two. Is that okay?
You can share as many as you want. Go ahead.
My first one. So I break it up into when I was a student at K-State and just as a fan in general. So as a student, my favorite game that I ever attended was in 2019 against Oklahoma. Oklahoma, I believe, was ranked somewhere between 4 and 6. It was Spencer Rattler at the time, or was Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, it should be Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
He had just transferred from Alabama. And, we all went to the game. It was homecoming weekend. My friend's parents were there as their first K-State football game. I was sitting in the student section with a good group of friends that usually don't come to the games. And that whole game was just so fun. It was a close game the entire time. And by the time it got to the fourth quarter, it's like, are we really doing this? Like, we're up by a touchdown or 10 or something along those lines. Like, we're really doing this. And that was the first time I rushed the field.
Cool.
Got on the field. All the players were out there. So much fun. That was the first time. It's when Mo Bamba was really big, like in the bars and whatnot. And it's not a K-State specific song, but I've never seen a sideline more hype than when they were playing that song. And I've got a video of all the players with their helmets off, like just fist pumping. There's like 20 seconds left in the game. And the energy, I've never felt that before in Bill Snyder. So that was awesome. Favorite memory as a fan in general was winning the Big 12 championship in 2022. That was my first and only Big 12 championship game that I've been to. And it was before I lived here in Texas, so now I'm planning on going to as many as I can.
Good.
But just to see K-State, college game day was that morning. It was all K-State people that whole morning. There's a lot of TCU people too. They just didn't come over till later since they were in Fort Worth. But everybody on the Dallas side was a lot of purple in general. And going over to Texas Live after that game was so fun. Seeing people I hadn't seen since college that were all there, and everybody's in a great mood. So, yeah, that was amazing, especially in that overtime win, too, with the goal line stand.
Right.
I
No,
think those defensive goal line stands might be even more exciting than running it in for a touchdown, So, great game.
absolutely. Yeah. We were on the very painful end of a goal line stand last year in the Red River game, and I think about it. I mean, probably I'd say once a day at minimum. It's just like, man, that's cool for them, but we got to convert. It's like, damn, get a yard.
Mm.
It's part of the game. But well, I definitely have. I've been to some fun K State games. Referencing back to that '07 game where y'all whipped our tails. It's late in the fourth quarter. We're down 3 scores. People are piling out, and like you can just hear the massive KSU, and then wild. I mean, it was so loud, and y'all are sitting, or they were sitting way up upper deck, like you're saying. It's pretty steep stadium the way it's designed, and it's just kind of like echoing down throughout the stadium. And I was like, man, that is really cool. It sucks right now that they just beat us by 3 touchdowns, but that was really cool. And then, so that kind of started, where I was like, all right, I used to kind of like Nebraska. I'd root for Nebraska every time when y'all would play in the Big 12 North, and y'all were probably my 2 favorites. But after that, I was like, Nebraska's kind of on the decline, and I mean, you gotta respect K-State. They're out there, dogging us on the field. Ron Prince is stomping around, and so Oklahoma State and you guys probably like my I'd say Kansas State, then Oklahoma State like my 1B and 1C behind Texas all those years in the Big 12.
Mhm.
But like Oklahoma State was kind of relentless on us. Y'all eventually let up and let us win a few times. Like Oklahoma State and Gundy, I mean,
Yep.
I guess Mac Brown used to get on them pretty hard, but man, they beat us up for a while. So to get to our last Big 12 championship win against those guys, it did feel pretty good. So cheers to us for being the last 2 Big 12 champions for now, and may you take them all down in the future. Ignore that Tech pick. I'm already almost there to switching it up. I don't know if I can do that, but and I will say this: win a couple of close games. I think last year y'all were really good in the third. Was it the third quarter or the fourth quarter last year? Y'all really one of the 2 quarters. It has to be the fourth, because that's when y'all dominated us. Y'all outscored opponents, so it was like 105 to 48 or something pretty serious, 107 to 48.
Mhm.
And so have you thought about the fact, I mean, you just play a little bit of cleaner football, and like you could be hosting a playoff game at Bill Snyder, the same place you just talked about, rushing the field and doing all that cool. Like that's certainly within your grasp, or your football program's grasp. I mean, just got to get it done.
Yeah, so it's the playoff format is weird, right? So I'm predicting K-State to win the Big 12. If K-State wins the Big 12, they're going to get a bye that first round. So they wouldn't have a playoff home game. The only way that K-State would have a home playoff game is if they get an at-large bid. So they would have to be a top 12 team-ish if they are not conference champions, which in the Big 12 I think is going to be very difficult to do. Last year, the highest ranked Big 12 team, if we're not including Oklahoma and Texas, would have been Arizona, and they were at 14. So if you're taking, let's say Arizona won the Big 12, I believe the next highest would have been, past 16. So getting an at-large bid is going to be really difficult. So I don't know if we're going to see any Big 12 playoff games at home this year. I'm honestly kind of predicting that there's only going to be one Big 12 team in the playoffs, and it's going to be the conference champion. That's the double-edged sword of this playoff format is I do not think it favors any conference outside of the Big Ten and the SEC. But we'll see if we can get a playoff game at Bill Snyder. That is going to be absolutely insane. The population of Manhattan during the school year is about 50,000. Bill Snyder Stadium capacity is about 50,000. So every game weekend is a sellout, and they're doubling the population of the city. If we had a playoff game there, I mean, there's going to have to be like measures taken
Right,
in
right,
order
of
to
course.
get things right. So it'd be huge for the city. I think we'd see a ton of people coming in. Those tickets are going to be insanely priced.
Yeah.
But man, I would if I could be there, I would definitely be there.
Yeah, that's what's cool about, the expanded playoff is some of these games or campus or games, sorry, rather, are coming to campuses, and those environments are going to be next level. Like I've already, seen it. Everybody's posting playoff predictions, and I'm always like, oh, cool, we're hosting versus Notre Dame, or oh, cool, we're hosting versus Ohio State. Like, dang, I don't want to host versus them. That's a tough matchup. Um, Playing out all the hypotheticals in my head, you know how it goes. But
Mhm.
it is pretty cool. I'll be jealous. If you or I'll not jealous, I'll be sad for you guys if you were to get in the playoff and not get one. Let me ask you this: if Kansas State were to go 10-2 against the schedule that you see or we showed you earlier, like, does that deserve a playoff spot to you? I mean, I know there's a ton of other factors on in play, but I mean, 10-2. I mean, I guess it'd be really hard, kind of making your point like you just said. But what are your thoughts? I mean, is there any chance?
It depends on who we lost to.
Oh, true.
uh, like you said, there's a lot of factors that go into it. It depends on how other teams are playing within the conference, outside of the conference. I do think that the Big 12 is really going to beat up on each other in general this year because it is a wide open conference. And besides that, it always ends up the Big 12 is always the most fun conference because whatever you're predicting to happen usually doesn't go that way. You'll get
Yeah.
one team in the conference championship that you're like, okay, yeah, I expected them, but then you'll get Oklahoma State, who was picked like seventh. It just keeps rising. So um, I personally do think that the Big 12 is a harder schedule than a lot of people kind of put together. But, the playoff rankings have kind of shown over the past several years that they really don't value those games as highly as some of the SEC and even the Big Ten. I honestly think there's a lot of teams in the Big Ten that really benefited off of the division setup that will really fall
Absolutely
off.
true. Yeah.
So
Well,
maybe some of those Big Ten teams will come back down to earth and maybe sneak another spot in there, but we'll have to see.
that's the thing is I mean, there's a lot of parity in your leagues. There's a lot of parity in other leagues or in the SEC. I don't know if the Big Ten has as much, and it kind of feels like with the way the schedules are shaped up, I'm not saying they did it with the intention of getting as many playoff teams in as possible, but there are a couple of schedules in there. I'm looking at Penn State and Iowa that are wow, wow. And so yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to believe and think it's fair that you can go 10-2 in that conference, and then they can go 10-2 against some of those schedules and are more deserving to get in. But that's the way it goes, I guess. Go 11-1, win all your games, make the conference championship, and just go that route. Coach Kleiman, I'm sure that's the route he would choose to take.
Yep.
Just do it the hard way and get in. Let me ask you something, and feel free to hurt my feelings here. Okay, I can take it. This is important that you know that. Will you whatsoever, even the tiniest, smallest part of you, will you be missing Texas and Oklahoma at all in the Big 12?
Okay, so Oklahoma. Let's start with Oklahoma. I'm going to miss beating Oklahoma the past like 3 out of 4 years.
3 out of 4, it is. Yep.
Kleiman figured them out, and the one year that we lost was on an insane like
Y'all had them.
re-kick on an onside kick. Like I was in Boston on a train watching it on my friend's phone. That was I didn't even know what happened, but you know, weird circumstances. Kleiman had Oklahoma's number. And, like the famous quote, we've got Vanderbilts now. It's not Lincoln Riley anymore. You can't just come in here and win. Well, they did. So I'm going to miss those games because beating Oklahoma was so nice. And they were one of the original Big 8 teams.
Of course.
And I think that Big Eight conference is so sentimental to so many people, and really was there for the entire rise of K-State football, when Bill Snyder kind of took over the team and saved the team. So I am going to miss Oklahoma for all that history that was there and the rivalry that was built. Texas, they've been in the conference for my, life, as the Big 12. I'm not going to miss, and I have nothing against Texas fans. I think people will say one thing or another. Texas fans, Texas A&M. I have not had a bad interaction with Texas fans. I do think that Texas operates similarly to the Cowboys in the NFL, where whatever Texas says goes. And I think that the Big 12 bent over for the Texas athletic program for many, many years because they wanted them to stay in the conference. And I don't think until Texas announced that they were leaving that they finally kind of started standing their ground on some of Texas's requests. So
They definitely battled back. I think you're
yes.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Fully, everything you said. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna miss that. But that's kind of more of how the Big 12 handled Texas, kind of allowing them to get walked all over. But more than anything, I'm gonna miss the history of all of those teams in that original Big 12. It's just it's not quite the same with TCU and West Virginia. They've been in long enough, but it's not the same. And Austin is only 3 hours away from me, so I'm going to really miss out on being able to go to athletic events in Austin to see my team compete there. So that part I will miss.
I'll take that. It could have been worse. No, I definitely. I've tried to make as many K-State friends as I can on Twitter, because I definitely know that there's a stigma out there from some of the Big 12 Twitter towards us. And it's like, hey, I get it. We have a lot of people that are yelling and screaming that we owned you guys. And it's like, yeah, we beat K-State 7 times in a row, but we won one conference championship in the last 15 years. Well, I guess 2 now. But so I do my best to let K-State know. It's like, hey, actually, I'm a huge fan of you guys, and keep going. So definitely huge thanks to you, Alison, for doing this. Real quick, if you want to tell our viewers where they can find you, if you want to do that. I didn't see your Twitter at, and I should have written it down.
Yeah, no, my Twitter is actually just my name. So it's Alison_Renner with 1 L, and spelled the exact way shown here, with an underscore between. I tweet a lot about K-State stuff in general, very casually. And then on the side, I do a country music podcast that's Western Grunge Tape Deck. So if you're into country music, you can check that out. I do a weekly podcast with them. And during the football season, I am going to be pretty much locked in on K-State athletics, occasionally Kansas City Chiefs football. So really looking forward to it.
Well, I hope you enjoy Xavier Worthy. I am a little sad he ended up with the Chiefs, because y'all already have everything. It's not fair, and I mean,
it isn't fair. You're right.
Y'all have an embarrassment of riches, which I mean, Mahomes is a big part of that, obviously. Yeah. So as long as he's there, you'll be pretty dang relevant. But guys, check Alison out. Follow Alison. You guys see our names are written in purple. We've got a K-State background. I am going further and further to try and prove my point that we are going to be talking and discussing all of college football on this channel. It is all about our guests. No, it does not mean that I hate Texas or root for Texas any less, so please don't be offended, any Longhorns, but we will be covering as much of the scope of the college football landscape as we can. So please do me a favor. If you are watching this on Twitter, just go to my profile, hit the link in my bio, and come subscribe to this channel on YouTube. Drop a like on the video for me and Miss Alison if you would. But yeah, we're going to be back tomorrow night. We've got the Gambling Gauchos Texas Tech Twitter group coming on. We'll see if they approve of my Texas Tech champion prediction. But once again, Miss Alison, thank you very much for being here. I would love for you to be back sometime.
Yeah, thank you.